Okay, welcome to Numerai's Fireside Chat for Q4. This is something we do where we answer user questions from the data science community on Numerai. And just a reminder, what is Numerai? We're trying to make by far the best AI hedge fund, and we believe the way to do that is to have an open platform where the best data scientists in the world can connect their models. We give out data on Numerai, where you can build a model with machine learning, submit it to us. Or if you already have your own data, you can build a model on that and submit that to Numerai signals. So yeah, those are sort of the goals of the company. I'm with Anson Chu, our CTO. I'm the founder and CEO. And let's get started with some questions.
Let's get started with some questions.
Do you have any other opening remarks?
Let's start with a casual just catch up. I think it's been a full quarter since we've done this. Maybe Richard, I can just ask you, how are you doing? What are you busy with nowadays? What are you thinking about?
I'm doing well. I'm back in San Francisco. I was in New York for about 6 weeks, working on fundraising for the company and our hedge funds. So our AUM is now $130 million. So we have made quite a bit of progress there. I think it was $7 million 18 months ago, something. So we're definitely growing the fund. And we also just hit our 3-year track record, well, about 1 month ago, 2 months ago. And when you have a 3-year track record and more than 100 million in AUM, it's sort of the right time to go market the fund. In addition, almost every asset class in the world is down very badly this year, whereas Numerai's funds are not. So that's been a big focus for me this quarter.
Cool.
How about you?
Yeah, I think me, sort of similar story. I think since the last time we did this Fireside Chat, I spent a lot of time helping to just productionize and scale up our hedge fund infrastructure. So as Richard said, we had a lot of AUM growth. I think with that comes a lot of operational and system complexity. So I've been working closely with our hedge fund team to kind of just scale that out and make sure that we were ready for the money coming in, and we'll be ready for the next phase of money coming in too. But I've also worked a little bit on hiring. I'm not sure, okay, so we have a new front-end engineer, Daniel, who joined us 2 weeks ago. Really excited to kind of switch gears here and spend a lot of time working on the tournament this quarter. So everything from the website to doing stuff with signals with Richard. Yeah, so I'm excited to kind of get back into the tournament and the web app.
We have a new homepage.
Oh yeah, we have a new homepage.
You guys haven't seen that on numerai.ai. And then we're even working on a new one for signals too.
Yep. So a lot of exciting projects coming on the website side. So excited to share that with you guys too. Cool. All right. So let's get into the Slido questions. In case you guys don't have a link to Slido, it's in the Rocket Chat announcements. You can see all these questions that I'm reading out or add your own. All right, Anonymous. How does Numerai verify that TC is achieving the goal it is supposed to for both the user and the fund perspectives? I guess, what is the goal of TC?
What is TC?
TC is true contribution. It is our latest and greatest way of scoring users. So the way I explain it to, I guess, people outside of Numerai is core or FNC or these other standard scores are a way for us to measure your personal performance. How is your model doing against the target? That's an absolute thing, and it only measures how well your own individual model is doing. TC is sort of measuring what is your marginal contribution to the group's performance, measured at an end-to-end level on the impact your model's predictions had on the fund's returns. So not only does it take into account how your model ensembles and interacts with other people's models. It also takes into account all the downstream components in downstream pipeline between your model's predictions and actual P&L of the hedge fund. So
Exactly.
that's what TC is.
So how do we verify that TC is achieving the goal it's supposed to? So, I mean, it's definitely always achieving. I mean, one of the things it's trying to do is pay people who are contributing the most to the hedge fund performance, which it's doing a perfect job of, right?
By definition.
Yeah,
sort of.
like it is the right way to do payouts for, like, how do you do attribution for a particular signal. And we can't go back and say, well, if we turned off TC, I wonder what would happen. Like, we don't know what would happen, right? Like, it's about what behaviors it's currently creating. So some things we see that are very encouraging is someone staking a lot on a model with 30% correlation with the meta model and having incredible TC on that, because we know that TC is supposed to encourage more uncorrelated models. And we do see that there's some very, very, very good models that are very unusual and uncorrelated. So that does appear to be working, that the TC is encouraging people to make more unusual models.
I think another thing that I don't think we ever shared externally, but we do look at internally, is we just run, I guess, like a simulation of what happens. So like, we have a simulation over multiple rounds. If we only paid you on core, like, how does the meta model's weights evolve over time, versus if we also paid you on TC, how does the meta model's weights evolve over time? And you compare the performance of the hedge fund's difference on that, right? In those type of simulations, obviously it's like looking at historical data, but it's definitely when we pay out on TC over multiple rounds, the meta model gets better than if we only just paid on core.
Exactly. So we know from those simulations that it does work. And the thing about those simulations is they don't even have the behavior effect in them. Like, if we pretend everyone in 2020 was staking on TC and we watch how the meta model evolves, well, those users weren't ever getting the feedback. So if that simulation works, then real TC is going to work even better. And that simulation does work. So that is kind of how we think about it. Now, we have actually been doing some thinking about TC and research on it. So we made 3 new versions of TC. One is called STC, which is Supreme TC. So we have 2 funds, One and Supreme, and they both have different optimizer settings. So they both have different true contributions. And so we wanted to make a TC version of that. And then we wanted to make a 60-day version of TC for both of them. So that's why we have 4 TCs now that are actually have been backfilled in our database. And we were thinking maybe some new version of TC should be all of those TCs added together. And interestingly, if you think about what users don't like about TC, is it's very volatile. So sometimes you can lose a lot and you don't really know why. And what you kind of would probably want as a user is a higher Sharpe in your TC. And as it turns out, if you take all 4 of these TCs added together, the volatility of the different TCs nets out. And the average person has a much higher Sharpe on their TC, which is probably good for most people. Some people might get worse, though, on this measure. We haven't yet actually done the same simulation we were just discussing. We haven't yet done that simulation with this new kind of ensemble TC, but we believe it will very likely be good. And we are doing it right now. In fact, the next few days we'll find out. I was quite interested to kind of push this out as fast as possible to let people stake on it. But there's some complications.
A lot of
Complications. Like if we want to stake on a 60-day TC, well, then you can't withdraw your stake for 60 days, which is 3 months, 60 trading days. So there would be a lot of it could help people because the variance of their TC would go down, but it could hurt people. It could not be the right thing. So I think it's like still in research and development. How do we make TC better, lower vol, have the average user have a higher Sharp without making it not true, right? We want it to still be true. And it is sort of true that it's now true that we have Supreme. So we do need people to contribute to Supreme. It is now true. It's also true that we hold stocks for about 3 months, not 1 month. So it does seem to make sense to have it have some weight on the 60-day. But basically, we feel like we want a proper, when we do change TC, we want to do it in a proper way. And we want it to be like something that makes everybody happy. Like it's better in all sorts of dimensions. Not like it's cool, but now I have to stake 60 days and my compounding of my stake is much slower. And we just want to think about it more, but we are thinking about it.
Yeah. I think maybe one more thing worth mentioning is on the user facing side, we're always thinking about like, how do we help users get more TC, right? So any type of scoring metric or maybe even new targets that we research, we ask ourselves the question like, will this help users get TC? Will this help users understand what to do so that they can actually change their behavior? Yeah. And
I would say it is more black box than it needs to be. Like we don't yet know, but we will be able to know other measurements and other systems of saying, oh, okay, this is how you get TC. But for now, it's only recently at this point. We actually had to make a new optimizer system in order to build these TCs, just as an infrastructure upgrade. And so that also took up a lot of the time this quarter, and that we're using in live trading now. So we do need TC to kind of use that new system. It's perfectly correlated with the old system for current TC, but it allows us to make other TCs and other important things. If you're familiar with hedge funds, another important thing is scale. Like some models might help us by buying lots of small stocks that won't really work on higher AUM. And the current TC simulator assumes we have 100 million AUM, but we actually have now 125. And that's going to get bigger. The difference. So there's just quite a lot to think about to make a proper like TC version 2.
Yeah. Also think like the ultimate TC will evolve over time as I guess our hedge fund evolves over time too. So look out for more changes. Okay, that's a lot on TC. Obviously we think a lot about TC and we spend a lot of time working on it. Okay, Joaquin asks, any update or timeline for the Numerai announced features? Benchmark models, synthetic data, stake-weighted meta model on the leaderboard, and staking 3.0.
Just to close this out, did Patrick post that thing in Rocket Chat that I asked him to? The stake, the usage of TC has never been higher. More and more people are staking on TC. So I feel that it's pretty impressive that people feel confident to do that.
Yes, posted.
Yeah, he did post it in general. You can just see how more and more people are kind of willing to stake TC. But I still think we can do a lot better to make people feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I would personally feel confident enough to stake TC times 3. But
some people got really good TC scores. Okay, so back to the second question. Updates on Numerai announced features.
Yeah, so we did announce a lot of features, and then the biggest thing we announced at Numerai, well, from the business perspective, was Numerai Supreme, this new fund. And it's quite hard to raise money for hedge funds because it's quite a sophisticated product. It doesn't appeal to everybody, and it's not suitable for everybody. But Supreme actually started with more than $50 million. So we did a very good job on the Supreme announcement and getting started with that new fund product. But then the other things kind of took a little bit of a back seat because it's quite complicated to do two funds. So the one thing listed here is he's asking about benchmark models. So benchmark models is kind of an interesting and useful way to know if you're going to get TC. So for example, we have many targets on Numerai. One of them is Jerome 60. Now, if you could see a Numerai created model that's created on Jerome 60 and backfilled over the last 3 years, and you could see its TC every week for the last 3 years, then that might encourage you, and it was really good, that might encourage you to use that target. But you can't see that, and but we have been working on that. But the first part that involved was us building our own internal models system that was actually like a proper piece of infrastructure, because you need, for example, say every time you want to have every time a year passes, you might want to retrain the model. And so you might want to have models that retrain and models that maybe do feature neutralization or all the different things you might want your models to do. And so we've built that whole internal model system now. Mike P did that. And we just haven't yet kind of put it into the website, but I hope to do that soon. And I'm not sure it'll be this quarter, but we're definitely working on it now. And I think it will be very helpful to people.
Yeah. Similar story with the stake weighted meta model on the leaderboard. I mean, yeah, I think we know it's something that you guys want a lot. It's something that I think would really help the community, kind of understand what's going on, and also just, maybe share in the joy of watching the stake weighted meta model do really well. But
also, we want to give out the stake weighted meta model predictions.
Yep.
That I think will be very interesting to people. And imagine we did this. Actually, this is a little bit what this is all in the background is. We gave out the stake weighted meta model predictions for the last 3 years, let's say. And then in diagnostics or whatever, you could do this yourself, maybe, but you couldn't do this yourself, but in diagnostics, we would compute the TC of your model versus that stake weighted meta model. So basically, can you get a little simulation of TC over a long period? And if you can do that, you can really develop your model and know whether it's going to work, because that's the problem with TC. It's kind of only on live, and there's no way to check it historically, and that can change.
Yep. On staking 3.0, yeah, maybe I can give an update here. I guess when I announced it, we basically had a proof of concept built out that essentially hard coded the rules as we the staking and payout rules as we understood it back in April. But obviously since then, a lot of things have changed. We started looking into longer time horizon targets, like the whole 60-day stuff, which fundamentally changes the game of the whole delay system, staking and unstaking. So that kind of got us going back to the drawing board a little bit to kind of imagine what are the fundamental pieces of the staking and payout system that we can actually put on chain that will not change over time. So I think as we're thinking about these things, as we're thinking about TC a little bit more and all these things that would potentially change the payout system, it just seemed to me like it wasn't the right time to launch staking 3.0. Also, we were busy building the new hedge fund, but I still think that there are a few big changes coming up that will fundamentally change how staking and payouts work, and we should not put the staking and payout rules on chain just yet. So I guess my answer is it's coming soon.
After some kind of big rebuild.
Yeah, after some kind of big rebuild. Synthetic data.
Yeah, synthetic data. We had this. I had this pretty long forum post, well, big thread of people talking about synthetic data. And actually, Suraj recently sent me something kind of interesting, using stable diffusion to make synthetic data from panel data.
Interesting.
I think it's in data science on Rocket Chat, hashtag data science. But I don't know. I mean, it's also something you guys can do. So we didn't want to we haven't allocated time to it for this coming quarter. But we are still watching all that research and watching that forum post and thinking about how we can do it at some point. Because the one thing we do have is, you know, the raw data, so we can maybe do a better job of making synthetic data than you guys could. But that's sort of waiting.
All right, res trading. Will there be documentations for how the additional targets were constructed?
Yeah, I feel like probably there isn't enough about the other targets, and there's probably more we can share. Often they're just neutralized to different things. I don't think we're going to get quite the way of saying this one's neutralized to momentum and this one's not, or I don't think we're going to go that far. But we can definitely say how, you know, we would use them and how you can think about them. So potentially when we have even more targets, we can do that better. There is a new target we're working on, which is better than Nomi, which is we haven't been able to make a target better than Nomi very easily. And we had some ideas that we've been trying, and I think it's going to be a very useful one for people to look at, and possibly will replace Nomi. The core on the website will be against this new target, but we still don't know yet. But we're soon gonna finish that target and get it out to you. And I think the first people who use it will probably like it.
Maybe here's a basic question. When you say that there's a target that is better, how do you measure like what's better?
In every way, you got to try and get it. Yeah, like in every way. So one thing you might want is a target that works better on higher AUM. So when we had $500 million fund, it would still work really well. Maybe current Nomi doesn't work that well. And then that it's a higher Sharpe when you backtest models built on it. And also somehow more, we think the way we think about targets is they should sort of try to match the optimizer risk. So if your target took on a lot of country risks, and then you end up not trading any country risk, like you refuse to go long a country because you always want to be neutral to countries, then that target's not going to work for the optimizer. So we just kind of think about it as how can you make a target that is connected with the optimizer.
Cool. Okay, Anonymous asks, when daily tournaments? Very soon. It is our top priority right now to work on daily tournaments. I think just
in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks,
you will be able to upload submissions daily.
Yes, which means there'll be a data API endpoint up for you to download live features every day. There'll be a new submission endpoint that you can submit your predictions every day. That's what we're working on. We believe in the next 3 weeks, we'll have that out.
But to start, it won't have anything to do with payouts or payments. You
or
can't,
scores.
Or scores, really. Yeah, you can't stake on your daily submissions. You won't even get daily scores for a while.
No.
It's really just enabling those endpoints so that we can later move over to daily.
Yeah. So first we'll get the data API up, then we'll get the submission endpoint up, and then we're going to start building the daily scoring and payout system. One group of us will, And then the other group will start building out what that new front end would look like. So, a new leaderboard, a new profile page, a new like model management screen to help you actually manage your daily predictions. And also like a bigger emphasis on automation, since, in these daily rounds, the submission window is going to be extremely tight. It's looking like it's going to be 1 hour submission window.
1 hour.
So as we onboard sort of like a beta group of users onto this new daily tournament, a big part of it would be understanding like what kind of automation requirements and what kind of automation support we're going to need. So those are the things that we're working on right now as our top priority, and they'll be rolling out the next 3 weeks.
There was another question, I think, which was like, are you going to submit multiple times a day in the daily tournaments? And the answer to that is no, it's just going to be once a day. In a short window, 1 hour, that you'll have to get your model back to us. Yep. So it's going to be pretty tight for a lot of people, but there's kind of no way of making it longer. It's just how we get the data
when we need it in order to actually trade it.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve asks, when more model slots? I haven't thought about this for a while. I mean, currently it's at 50.
Just give more.
We can probably do more on so it's funny, this question we get like over time. And the reason why I always say no to it or later is actually it's like different every time. I think right now, the reason why I can't just do 100 like right now is because the models page is not designed that well. And if you actually have 100 models, the page will probably freeze if you try to like load it and stuff. So there's a little bit of stuff we want to do to upgrade the website to be more more model friendly. Like if you have like above 50, like the page will still work and stuff. So a couple upgrades there, and then 200 very soon. Also, I do want to always increase model slots whenever we release new data. I think there's like, so that you don't have to like delete old models, you can just create new experimental ones. There will be new targets and a new data release coming soon, so we'll probably add more model slots then. Correlator asks, can all the metrics like TB200, different target cores for 20-day, 60-day be made available via the API so we can study TC ourselves rather than relying on the team? Different target cores for 20 and 60-day. I think we added that already.
Right? I think we added Jerome to
core J60.
Yeah, yes. But I think he's saying, why not just give us every target? Every target you release, you should add the correlation to it in the API.
I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're making, it's not that computationally hard.
No.
Yeah.
So as part of this like TC60, like the 60-day TC upgrade project Richard was talking about, we also had to sort of massively upgrade our scoring architecture in order for us to be able to nicely compute scores in different time horizons and like do them all in parallel, because they're going to take way too long. So yeah, I think now that we have that system, we've built it, it's in production, we can easily sort of just give you every single score that you need. So yeah, maybe we should just do that. Cool. Joe, when switching from Spearman to Pearson correlation? Richard mentioned it briefly at the New York meetup.
Yes, there was a New York meetup that the Council of Elders put on. And I did mention this. So yeah, the way we do correlation, which is the key metric, first metric you're going to get used to on Numerai, is correlation with the targets, the NOMI targets. And we do it with ranked correlation, Spearman correlation. What we found is that there's kind of another way to do correlation. It's actually not just saying, oh, we take the Pearson correlation. It's a bit more complicated. It's more like we take your submission we rank it, we normalize it, and then we put that normal distribution to the power of 1.5, and then take its renormalize, make it standard deviation 1 after that transformation, and then check the Pearson correlation of that with the target. And that, whereas correlation, normal core, Spearman core, has a correlation of 0.18 with TC, that transformation of core has a correlation of 0.23. So it's a slight increase, but it's also like it's like also like reality, like in the stock market, if the stuff in your tails, which Pearson is more like upweighting in some way, matters more. And so you do want to have a scoring function that kind of like upweights that. And so by doing these transformations and taking this power of 1.5, we're pushing the distribution out, and then taking the correlation of that ends up being a little bit more the right thing to do. So that's something we might actually change everywhere on the website. Just like we're changing the way we do core, because yeah, it's also more, even if it's got a little bit, TC is hard to know about, but so it's a little bit better with TC, but it's also better just with returns. Like it's more correct, kind of. So that might be some coming soon to everywhere, signals and everything, but probably still have a little bit of work to do on it.
Okay. Anonymous, if Numerai adds signals submissions to the meta model, how much would that change the TC of the main tournament? Isn't this important to see? I guess the question, assumes that we're computing TC across both signals and the regular tournament together.
Yeah. So right now, the way TC works for signals is it is comparing you versus the Numerai meta model and actually ignoring the other signals submissions. It's just the way we wanted to start it, because we wanted to be like Numerai's TC, and Numerai's TC is not including the signals models at the moment. So that's kind of why how we've done it so far. But yes, at some point, I think there will just be something called the meta model, which is everything. And it might be just stake weighted, all the submissions from signals and Numerai. It might, yeah. So once we have something like that, then maybe all the TCs will be based on that system. But that could also make it even more unclear. Yeah. Like someone on signals could have some really strange model, and your model could, that's bad, let's say, and your model could cancel off that model, and you get all this TC for kind of canceling off this model, but you don't even know that the data that it was built on or anything. So it does start to get a bit crazy. And then how Numerai thinks of how do we weight signals versus Numerai, maybe we don't want to weight it in a stake weighted way. Maybe we want to have the option to weight it however we feel like. So I don't think we're quite there in knowing how TC will change, but I quite like the idea of TC just being kind of about against Numerai's meta model, not including signals.
Res trading. If we move to daily tournament with a 3-month resolution, will stake decrease take 3 months to release or release immediately? Right. So this is sort of the proposal that we almost shipped. We almost shipped it, which was if you had a 3-month or I guess a 60-day resolution, it would extend your stake decrease delay period to 3 months or to that 60 days. We went 90% there. building out the system, but like as we were kind of doing final reviews, we were just thinking like we didn't really like that system in terms of its UX, so we're not doing that anymore. What we want is something much closer to immediate releases. I think, and that's sort of like the promise of staking 3.0, or at least partially, which is allowing you to manage your staked NMR, sort of like move it around in like a faster way. That's like what we want. And I think releasing immediately would be like the ultimate form of that. Our current idea is that like if we can have scores that actually compound nicely every single day, then we would be able to have faster releases. So that's something that we're researching right now, and that we're designing towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, one of the problems in some ways, the sort of thing that keeps bugging Anson from being able to make a lot of these changes is like the fact that we have overlapping rounds, and that correlation can really only be evaluated at the end of 30-day period, 20-day period. And I think we need to get to a world where like you can submit as much as you want. Like you might miss 3 days because you're not good at uploading daily, or and might catch up later and start submitting a lot more later, and like somehow to have a system that doesn't care about any overlapping rounds concept. And maybe there are no rounds, sort of. It's just like submit as much data as you can to us, and we will handle how scoring works, and you will always be able to pull your stake quickly.
Yeah.
Even if we're in the middle of stuff, we will just calculate what your sort of pending amount that we can like estimate. And sure, maybe later there's a burn, but like I think there's like a way we can handle it.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, Orr says, is the impact of TC already visible on the fund performance?
It is, in that people are staking TC and submitting models that are trying to earn TC. But again, we don't know. We don't have another version of Numerai that doesn't have TC. So we don't know exactly.
Another question from Bohr. Can we get another what correlates with TC analysis from Michael Oliver? I'm assuming that as we optimize for TC, what correlates with TC also changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this kind of, I want to say, you know, on signals is quite a black box, because we actually, the core there is sort of means FNC. So we pre-neutralize your signal and score you against this feature neutral targets. But what's nice, so that's very black box, right? You don't know what our features are. But there is a way to test on historical data how well you would do. So in diagnostics pre-neutralizes you and gives you, here's your result. And so the fact that you can actually, so that's what we need for TC, I think the most. Not just like what correlates with TC, but like give us a historical signal and we'll try to estimate the TC. I think that's the best way forward. But as the other question said, you know, we might have other correlations in our API and for other targets, and potentially you can compute this type of thing yourself, see what correlates with TC more easily. But yeah, we're still developing TC as well, and so I don't want to make like a lot of details on how to get good at current TC.
Okay, Anonymous asks, when see Numerai Supreme's performance?
When see?
I guess like when are we going to post Numerai's Supreme's performance on the fund page?
Yeah, when it's kind of long enough, it doesn't make sense to show like a sharp or something over a 2-month period. So I think just when it's long enough.
When stake management, I think we talked about that already. Joaquin, how do we know core TC payouts, etc., are calculated correctly? Do you do any regular independent audits of internal controls?
I mean, there's a lot of things people mess up. I was just talking about this yesterday with one of our engineers, like, but it's not on the websites. I do think core and TC and all these have been built correctly, but it took a long time because there's so many subtle things that can go wrong. I mean, if the stakes was a possibility you could have a negative stake at one point or something. And then the API, when we're calculating stake weighted meta model, is returning a negative stake. And we're like, well, we didn't want that. That's not good. That should at least just be zeroed out. And so there's so many tiny things like that that can go wrong. And because it's TC, it's kind of a black box, it's hard to know whether it is wrong. But what we're trying to do is have a lot of assertions in all the functions, because that's the other problem is you have a new engineer who joins and I ask them, show me the core of this. And they'll give me Pearson core, but I never meant that. And anyone else at Numerai would know I didn't mean that. And the Pearson core can be very, very different. And when you're dealing with a high signal, low signal to noise game, you can drown out what you're trying to learn very quickly. So we do have a lot of we are adding more and more internal controls.
Yeah, I think the way I see it is like, how do you ensure that we're doing it correctly? I think step one is just having a system that is as simple as possible, where like the complexity in, I guess, the math is isolated in a spot where you can look at it in one place. I think in the past, when we were building the system, because we were building it so fast and we didn't really know like the end state of it, a lot of the scoring was sort of like scattered around like multiple files, and they had to like interact in the correct way in order for us to compute the right answer. I think one big thing that we did this quarter was to kind of merge all that logic, all that configuration of scores into a single place, so that if there was a bug, we can easily find it, we can easily test it, and we now have like much higher confidence that we're doing these things correctly. I think for payouts, we sort of already did that like last year. When Patrick started like really looking into this, we rewrote like almost the entire payout pipeline, all of our like ledgers, and that's when we actually were able to give you guys like good stake transaction reports, because we had very high confidence that all these transactions were correct. Scoring is like currently kind of going through that revolution. We haven't reached the point where we're asking like an audit firm to come in and audit our scores.
We've never reached that point.
Yeah, but I think we will reach a point where we're just like 99.99% confident that all these scores are correct. I think we're pretty close to there. Okay, next.
Also, if we release the stake weighted meta model, you can prove your core is correct yourself.
Yeah. Okay, anonymous. Is signals still a focus for Numerai? What would it take for Numerai to start trading on these signals submissions?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, I actually heard this question from another Signals user, and it's like, Signals has been growing. Like, Signals has millions of dollars in stakes on it. Like, it's becoming a very important thing, and it has over 1,000 staked submissions. So it's 1/5 the size of Numerai. And it's a critical. There's no world where we don't have signals at Numerai, because we need a way for people who have their own data to create signals and send them to us. And so that's just a fact. And so Signals will have a huge focus in the coming weeks. And we're going to be releasing a lot of new targets for Signals. A week or two from now, you'll have new targets for Signals. and the website will score based on show those targets. And hopefully this will help you understand how to do better on signals as well. What we're thinking of is there's the feature neutral target that we give out currently, and then we also show IC, which is your correlation with returns. And there's a kind of intermediate thing that's really worth showing, which is what's the correlation of your signal after we take out the major factors in the market, momentum, value, things like that. And so that will be a very useful target for people to train on. I think what you should be trying to do as a signals user is like, yes, have very good FNC is a good thing, but you don't really want to have really good FNC and then no IC and no RIC, which is this intermediate thing, residual information coefficient. So once you see that, we're going to start showing that in the diagnostics, and I think it's going to improve people's signals models. And then, yeah, we're trying to look and do research to see about adding signals to the trading at Numerai, because it does look very, very, very good when you add it to the meta model. And so, but we didn't want to do it, before reaching and getting enough data. And signals, I think, just turned 2. So it's now a good time to say, okay, it's definitely working. It's working in all sorts of different market environments, and it's getting better with time because there's more users. And so it's going to be a big part of what we do this quarter.
Yeah, I think I'm always excited when Richard says, oh, this thing gets better with more users, which means that I can work on growth initiatives. So new signals homepage coming soon. I also heard that maybe we're going to get signals swag, maybe.
Tell your friends about signals and Numerai. Like, we need more users. We want more. And we don't really like advertising. So this is a great time to tell people.
Here's a question from me. Do you think we'll ever see a flipping of signals getting bigger than Numerai in terms of NMR staked or staked models?
I don't know. I don't think so. What do you think? Is it even on that trajectory now? It's always going to be harder to get your own data than download Numerai's data.
Yeah.
But maybe people, if they have their own data, feel super confident about their model, and then they don't mind staking a lot. Like, there is this user, Alpha X and Beta X, on signals now that is staking $500,000. And maybe there's no reason he wouldn't go to $5 million.
Yeah, I think if and when we switch TC to sort of be like the main payout, the main score that we pay out on, and like we significantly downweight core, and we do stake weighted meta model between both of the tournaments, sort of like by stake weight, then maybe I think there will be a signal splitting. We'll see. Okay. On a longer term horizon, what kind of potential drastic changes to the classic tournament are you exploring? I'm ready for more changes. You're ready for more changes. Okay, great. Well, daily tournament's coming soon. A new scoring, a completely new way of doing daily scores and payouts is coming soon. New TC coming soon, new data coming soon, new targets coming soon. Maybe those are not drastic changes, though.
I think it's going to be more drastic than that. I think it's going to be a bit more like the flow of signing up and stuff will feel a bit more like you're connecting your signal to our hedge fund and every day, and all the scoring and things like that will be completely different.
Yeah.
And be daily. And also somehow longer term. Like, we don't really want, something to think about is like, if someone submits a model and they get TC in 1 week, is that really information? Like, no, that's it. They helped us in that week, but it's unclear how good that user will be in the future and all that type of stuff. So I just kind of want it to be somehow more like
long-term.
like long-term, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what if you took your whole, if you think, I don't know if this makes sense, but if you think about what TC is doing, it's taking your one submission that you just submitted, and it's saying, what is the gradient of that, of your how much are you affecting the performance on that 1 week of the final returns of the portfolio? Is that the same or different than taking all your submissions over a year period and computing how much do you help over that whole period? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And like,
because right now TC is sort of like treating each submission independently, whereas you're talking about like considering the whole history.
Exactly. And then why is everything on this round basis of 1 month?
Yes.
When that's almost not even enough information to say anything.
Yep.
And so I also think we'll get rid of reputation. This idea that your scores over the last 20 weeks are somehow a significant thing.
Yep.
Versus the last 2 years.
Yep.
Where is your Sharp? Why aren't we showing your Sharp? And the reason it's like the reason is Sharp isn't a round concept. It isn't a 1 month concept. It is a longer concept. So yeah, like I just feel like somehow everything needs to feel like longer.
Yeah. I think maybe what that translates to is we may be moving away from this idea of round numbers, sort of like as the x-axis of everything. I think we want to get a little bit closer to dates as the x-axis of everything. But also, instead of considering like everything, doing scoring and payouts on like a per submission basis, we want to think of it more as like on a model basis. Like, how much is your model contributing to the meta model, as opposed to how much is this particular submission contributing to the meta model? I mean, also the first thing Richard mentioned, which was like, oh, the UX of it is going to feel like, you're on the onboarding, you're sort of like adding a node to our network. I think a lot of the UX inspiration we're taking from is like, in public blockchains, when you deploy your node and you add it to the network, and you kind of see it on the list of, like staked nodes or something. I want to transition our leaderboard to like look and feel something more similar to that. Like, when you add a new node and let's say you start validating Ethereum or something, it's not like you'll like craft transaction, you'll validate transactions by hand and submit it. No, it's like you deploy a node to do that automatically over time. So I think the onboarding experience of like what it means to create a model, what it means to make submissions, that's going to change on the UX level of Tournament. Although, I mean, I suspect someone like for you, Bor, who you're already fully automated, good job, that might not change as much. But for all the new users, when they're joining Numerai for the first time, instead of us saying, here, why don't you click this button to like upload your first submission? That is probably going to change to, okay, now the next step is for you to deploy your model and actually be part of the network. Yeah. When account level staking, yeah, I mean, that's also something, I mean, yeah, we talked about that already. So more changes there. Joaquin, for daily predictions, will you need multiple predictions per 24 hours depending on market time zone?
No.
Okay, yeah, no, we're doing one prediction, one submission window per day for now. Do you have an estimated expected monthly cost for daily compute light predictions? I don't, but I also want to build out. Okay, so
Surely it's pennies.
Probably dollars if we're doing it every day.
$7.
Something like that, on the order of like under $10. I think if but it does matter. It depends on like what resources you're actually doing, right? So okay, let me take a step back. What is compute light? Compute light is a new sort of like version of compute that we're building, which is much easier to deploy than our old version, which of compute, which we call compute heavy. It is much more restrictive though, in terms of like what you can actually deploy. Compute heavy gives you full flexibility. Compute light sort of gives you a very is very opinionated and tight boundaries as like what you can and cannot do. But in return, it makes the deployment process much easier. So I imagine the onboarding process for automation in the future to be like, well, if you want something quick and easy, then you can use this compute light. If you want like fully featured maximum flexibility, then you can use this like the compute heavy framework. Okay, monthly cost for both of these things, it heavily depends on how much resources your model or your scripts when invoking these models. It depends on that much more than like the architecture of the framework itself. So instead of me just promising, okay, no matter what you deploy, it's going to be cheap, it's just not really true. What I want to do is to add better cost metrics on the website so that you don't have to kind of go to AWS and do like, and labor to do cost optimization. In our website, in the model management page, you should be able to just see like, here's the status of your model node. If you want to see logs, you should just be able to see it right there and see cost estimate, cost projections. So I think my approach is to just be able to like help you do cost optimization and cost tuning by giving you good tools and good metrics on the website itself. But okay, all that being said, compute light probably still on the order of dollars per month. Okay, res trading. Does TC and FNC v3 calculations currently involve the dangerous features?
I think they might actually. I hadn't thought of this. So they might. I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
But it's not that dangerous if they do. Because if this feature becomes like, well, the problem with those features, the dangerous features we mentioned, is like they were very good in the past, and then they became noise. That's how to think about it. And actually, if you neutralize by noise is always going to be orthogonal to you already. So you're not going to have any problems with. We actually, even because when we had sort of decided these were dangerous features, we actually thought, oh man, we better make sure we optimize. They changed the optimizer to make for live trading, even if we didn't change TC for live trading. Like, maybe we should try to get, and we changed it, and actually was kind of a no-off. It didn't really matter in live. It's really about training your models. You don't want to train on these dangerous features, but if you have those features in live, it doesn't matter. You have them as penalties.
Okay, anonymous. How effective of a feedback mechanism will 60-day TC be with the 3-month-long lag?
What you really want to do is upload a longer model where the result of it matters to you. So that's what I keep repeating. Imagine you could upload 3 years of your model, and then it would tell you its estimated TC. Because you're right, even on the 60 days, even on 60 days, you're not getting that much information. And you're right, you're only going to get it 3 months later. And you're going to be like, wow, I don't even know what model I submitted 3 months ago.
Are you happy with TC as it is now? Maybe we talked a lot about that already.
Yeah, like one thing I am happy with it. I do think it's evolving the meta model in a way that it wouldn't have evolved if we just kept paying on core. It's also probably made some really creative people that don't have that much NMR, who are willing to stake TC times 3 and willing to run very uncorrelated models. It's made them richer faster. Yep. And by making them richer faster, their stakes are a bigger weight in the meta model than they otherwise would be.
Okay, Anonymous asks, did the data augmentation forum post bring any
So that's
conclusion?
synthetic data question.
Okay.
No, we still think it's going to happen in some way. We're probably going to do it eventually, but we also think other people can do it right now.
Okay, Joaquin, why did you roll back the universe expansion? You noticed.
That was, yeah, we try to make our universe bigger, add some more stocks. And then there was actually a bug in the research that said this would help a lot. Stupid bug from a function that just shouldn't be written that way. I think we've changed it. So usually adding more to your universe is going to help you. But what we cared about is that expanding the universe would help even if you didn't retrain your model on the bigger universe. And that wasn't really true. So we decided to roll it back until some point where maybe we give you a much bigger universe to train on.
Yes.
But even that, it seems kind of marginal. So we're not like rushing to do that anymore.
When will Numerai be profitable? Where is the break-even point? How solvent are you currently?
Joaquin.
Great question.
We're not, well, we actually are profitable. Because it's by law, by the way accounting works, whenever we've sold NMRs, that creates revenue. So if we sell NMR to a crypto fund, like we did to say Pantera or Polychain or Paradigm, then we get revenue. It's called revenue. It's not like selling shares. And so we have this revenue. And so actually we've been profitable for many years on that very not good basis. So we want to get to real profitability where the fee income from our hedge funds pays for everything. And depends on our performance, but we'll probably make a few $1 million this year in revenue, depending on the performance. Maybe it could be $4 million. But we have about 7 million in costs. But I think next year will be profitable. For sure. Not for sure, but probably.
For sure. For sure. Okay, correlator. Can changes to the scoring metric be made at regular intervals, say twice a year in January and July, with minor updates in between if required? This would reduce uncertainty. Yes, I think it can. I think one of my favorite pet ideas, which I learned from watching this one video on like how to design computer games, but essentially is to have like more predictable roadmaps, predictable schedules for data releases, changes to the scoring and the payout function and system. I think we'll get there eventually. Although I think right now we're sort of in the phase where, you know, we have these ideas on how we can improve Numerai. And I think we want to hold ourselves to like, if we find something that is much better for everyone, we want to release it like as soon as possible. It feels a little bit weird to like wait 3 months to release it, especially if we think it's going to impact like our P&L, the hedge fund fast. But, you know, we're always balancing like, oh, you know, is this like change kind of big enough to warrant users retraining? Is it big enough to warrant people having to like relearn what the scoring function is? I think the solution to that is like a scheduled, like regular interval update system. I think we'll get there eventually. I don't know if we're going to do it like right now, but maybe I think eventually we have to do that. Yeah. I mean, I definitely hear you. This is great feedback. I think reducing uncertainty in terms of like when users have to retrain and like reread the docs, that's definitely top of mind for us. How are we doing on time? 10? Gone for about
Pretty
an
good,
hour.
1 hour so far. I just saw a question here. What effect on base core FNC given 60-day holding period? Not sure I understand. I mean, you can make a 60-day version of core and FNC. I'm not sure what you mean.
Yeah. Okay, Todd. Daily tournaments. How much lead time for training and model prep before they go live? Will it be the same payout structure as the main tournament? So for daily tournament, we're giving no lead time because we don't think you're going to have to retrain your model. So the only change that you'll expect like very soon is instead of getting live features once per week, you'll just get it every day. But the structure of the features, targets, all that stuff is all staying the same. We're just giving you more updates and giving you a chance to submit more frequently. With the different scoring and payout structure of the main tournament, that part we're still working on. And you'll have a lot of lead time before we switch out scoring and payouts. Yeah. So don't worry, Todd. Okay, QE. Any chance we will see Core X2 in the main tournament, just like with Signals?
No, the reason it Signals has core times 2 is because it's lower volatility, because it's actually FNC. So no.
Okay. My Siesto. TC is murky to us. We can't calculate or optimize or even check it. Can you consider moving TC in-house and using it to create concrete scoring metrics for us?
Oh, like we make special metrics.
Yeah, I think that's something we thought about, right? It's like we would compute TC internally, then we would change the scoring function to like the best approximation of TC using scores that people can actually optimize for. But I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
the right thing to do is to score on TC, even if it's black box.
I think so too.
But I mean, all the stuff that we said above, right, about helping TC be less murky and to help you approximate it and help you optimize it. We're working on all of those instead, but we're probably not going to take TC in-house ever. Anonymous. Did BJ.com and Broccoli X get a bounty for reporting the staking problem? Are bounties actually paid any more for bug reports? I don't know what the staking problem was, but bounties are always paid for bug reports.
Great.
Res trading. How was the medium feature set selected?
It's just yeah, it's just a good subset that sort of already has really quite a lot of information in the data. So I would say very, very, very good models can be built on the medium feature set, like ignoring the other features. But yeah, basically those features explain a lot of the variance.
Yeah. I think internally, we also talked about sort of giving a little bit more information about these feature sets, right? Like maybe categories of feature sets and all that stuff. Maybe more information on feature sets.
I do kind of think it would be quite cool if there were more feature groups. Actually, there's incredible presentation at the New York event by Joe. And he basically has a way of filtering out features on the Numerai data by looking at the chart of correlation chart of each feature individually, and found that when he drops those features, he can make much better models. And so it'd be quite cool if we just say, oh, thanks for that, making this public. We're going to name a feature group after you, which is the ones that you like in this research. And I think there are many other things we could do for feature groups. I think we call them feature sets. And there's the ones that we have now aren't very interesting, just medium, small, large.
Yeah, those were really selected because we wanted to make a medium, small, large. And then we were like, okay, what's the best medium, small, large set we can make? But I think there can be a lot more different ones that are not just based on size. Okay, Anonymous, when 24/7 support? We already have 24/7 support, or we try to. Maybe you can give me some feedback on what more do you want to see? Anonymous, why not continuous payout multipliers? Do you use these multipliers somewhere in the mem model construction? We don't currently use the multipliers in meta model construction, but we may in the future. Something we could look into. Continuous payout multipliers, mainly an UX issue. I just didn't want people to be sort of like playing that meta game of like adjusting it by 0.01 like every week based on like their scores or something. Although the backend system that we built definitely supports continuous payout multipliers already, because we're thinking maybe one day we'll get there, but right now I think we like the discrete payout multipliers just for a UX reason. Correlative. Have you thought about alternative data which might be industry specific and available since past few years? How can such data be included in the current scheme?
Amazing question.
I really like Correlator.
Correlator is it's correlated with good questions.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, we basically kind of had this rule at Numerai, like we're not going to add data unless it goes all the way back to the beginning of the data, which is like 20 years. And it better apply to all the stocks in our universe. Machine learning requires a lot of data. And so if you're going to start cutting off, if you have data that starts in 2020, and it's not going to be long enough to be useful. Or is it? Right? Like maybe you guys can find a way to use data that is much shorter and only on one industry and what has a lot of NAs. Who knows what you can do? So I kind of am excited about that, and we will be releasing new data this quarter, new features.
Yeah.
Did we? Yeah, we should have announced. Yeah, we didn't announce that.
Is Correlator a alternate persona of Mike P? No, but this is literally what we were discussing yesterday. Very excited about new data sets that might break those, those rules that we self-imposed rules.
And yeah, so because of the data system, it's kind of nice. Like you can ignore that. You can be like, look, okay, Numerai's released some new features. They have nans in them. They're way too sparse. I'm going to ignore it, and that's fine. But because we'll keep supporting V4 data, but V5 might, or V4 might have new columns that you can just ignore.
Yeah.
Or use.
Okay, Anonymous. Since TC relates to portfolio construction, develop another data set that has covariance data so that we can concretely model portfolio construction as our second step.
Smarty pants. I like the question. I mean, this is the right. There's a big thing in quant is portfolio construction, and Numerai isn't about that. It's about making signals. But I do think, in fact, there's something I kind of want to do quite soon, which is on signals, Numerai signals. Could you just upload a weight of a portfolio that you like based on your signal. So you might say, if you want your TB100, you put your top 100 signals, give them all a 1, and your bottom 100 signals, give them all a -1. And now you're kind of like long short your TB100. And so like, it seems like worth doing. And Suraj asked me this because why not practice portfolio construction too? And maybe there are things you guys can do that are very impressive on the portfolio construction side that Numerai isn't doing with our own optimizer. I don't really think it's very easy to give covariance data for Numerai. But I think for signals, it's probably a good place to let people play with portfolio construction. Maybe in a few years from now, we can find a way to use it.
Will signals submission be daily as well? Yes, it definitely will. Anonymous, is Numerai hiring? Are there any positions open to contribute towards daily predictions and the long-term decentralization of everything? We're always hiring. We're always looking for the best people in all teams and all positions. So if you want a job here, you think that you have something to offer and contribute, just email me, slyfox@numerai.ai or richard@numerai.ai.
Probably for engineering,
but probably email me.
But yeah, that's awesome. We always are hiring, and there are actually a lot of companies that have hiring freezes and things because the market's down or their stock's very, very badly down. But Numerai hasn't ever been this good. It's a great time for us because we're neutral to the market forces, and in fact kind of counter-cyclical. When things are bad, we look relatively better and we attract more investors.
QE, when staking on Core J60?
I don't think we'll do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Core Jerome 60 is just a target to train on, and we think it's kind of a nice one. It's sort of neutral in a deep way, in a different way than the other ones. So it's worth kind of like checking if it helps to train models on it if you haven't already.
Joaquin, when Numerai won TC20 plus TC60 plus Supreme TC20 Supreme TC60?
When are we going to give out an ensemble of different TCs? I just don't think it's like perfect yet. Like even if we gave it out now, it wouldn't be stakeable because of the problem of the TC60 taking so long to resolve. So we're just going to keep working on it. And when we do give a new release, I promise, I think everybody will be surprised how much higher sharp, how much we can take the vol down of TC without making it, while keeping it true.
Yeah. But when is probably after we rebuild this scoring and staking system that's going to get rid of all like the bad issues with having to stake on a 60-day target. So we need to solve that first, and then we can move there. QE, any chance staking 3.0 will include rebalancing stake amounts between staked models when 3.0 is released in the next couple of months? Wink. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about that again. So like, yeah, I don't like rebalancing now. I think the true answer is just letting you do releases faster. So you could do whatever you want. You can rebalance or you can just take it out. So that's what we're attacking now. API internal server error. No. Is there a chance we will get decent error messages in the future? Yes. If you're getting API internal server errors, please reach out to me or Chris, and we will fix those as soon as possible. We'll also give you a bug bounty. Correlated. If Numerai could incentivize using AWS credits or providing internal compute resources like GPU, that would be cool. How about compute credits for medal winners? I like that. Actually, we actually spoke to AWS a couple of years ago when we initially did compute, and we almost did this entire system where we would give out compute credits as sort of like as part of the payout system. But I think we were just not big enough at that point to warrant them sort of investing a lot of resources into helping us achieve that. I think we are big enough now. Or maybe we need to get a little bit bigger before we can get like group discounts for AWS credits. But I think it's a good idea. I still really like that idea. In Richard's original master plan post, if you read the bottom of it, it was like, oh, you know, how cool would it be if you stake NMR and like you get like free compute. That's definitely in the vision. Okay, Wiggle Muse. Haven't heard from you in a while. Hello, Wiggle Muse. Regarding daily submissions and type deadlines, maybe we can get a semi-persistent row IDs changed weekly so we can use previous days' data for time-consuming predictions.
I can see, yeah, maybe why that's useful, because you don't have to regenerate the predictions because you already have the old ones. But yeah, I do think we're gonna change the row IDs. But I haven't thought about it much.
Yeah, I haven't thought about this.
We also might have things by default, by the way, like you could maybe, if you just have like a checkbox, if I didn't submit today, please use my yesterday's submission for me, or something like that. Maybe we can do that.
But yeah, tell me, so yeah, with daily submissions and type deadlines, I think I'm really interested in hearing more from you guys about what kind of time-consuming pipelines you have on your end, so that I can help you around these issues. So tell me more about these things. Good feedback, Wiggle Muse. I'll have to talk to Mike P about the row ID thing. I don't know if I can promise you actually getting the semi-persistent one. So Anonymous, V4 data has an extra 141 features, 1,191 in total. Compared to in V3, we have 1,050. Give us some color on how the new 141 differ from the 1,050.
Yeah, I don't actually know enough details actually myself about that. I know we tried to add in, I can't remember, but yeah, as a general rule, we're never going to tell you what the data is on Numerai. But I would, you know, when we do add some new data, I would think about it, treat it like its own thing, so that you can do research that says, oh, okay, I think these new features they gave me do behave a little bit differently than the other ones. But we can't really tell you what they are.
I think maybe another general rule is like the latest data set is always what we think is the best data set. We keep the old ones around for backwards compatibility, but like we released V4 because we believe, okay, this is the one that if we were building a model and staking on, we would use this. So if we deleted some, it's probably because we thought we shouldn't have them. But yeah, also, I don't know. I'm not going to give you the details behind that. Anonymous, for easier taxes, any chance you could keep deposited stakes separately from earnings, let users choose what to get paid from at risk equals deposit percentage? I think that as a rule, we don't give any tax investment or tax advice. So I think and because everyone's like tax situation is different depending on what jurisdiction you're or your personal circumstances.
He's not asking for tax advice.
I mean, changing the way that staking works to do for someone's tax optimization.
But are we going to make that change or not? I think it's the question. It's not asking for tax advice. Any chance you could keep deposited stakes separately? Are we going to do that? No.
No.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, we cannot.
Joaquin's asking
Yeah,
when new targets, is going to be, yeah, one or two that are coming quite soon. But they're sort of cool because they sort of supposed to be these ones that are maybe like better than Nomi. And so they've kind of, we could have made like 6 targets out of them with all the different ideas in each target. But we're kind of going to make it one, so that it could possibly replace Nomi. But it's coming soon.
Also ask, which targets do you like the least?
There are some I don't like. Yeah, I've kind of like cooled on some of the older ones. Especially the ones that appear to be kind of like very neutral. They're too neutral for their own good.
Can you please give us code to reproduce FNC as given by the API? Thanks. I think, don't we have that already? Doesn't the example
even like in the example script? Maybe,
yeah,
but maybe they're saying the API somehow does it differently.
I believe that in our example scripts, we show how to do feature neutralization already. If not, then yes, I think we should probably give out example code for that. When proper equation with fund AUM and tournament total staked, but without NMR price in it before you monopolize money. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, I'm skipping. Sorry. Res trading. Can we have a more user-friendly API for TC60, similar to Core 60? Currently getting TC60 requires pulling daily scores for each model each round. I don't think we even launched TC60 yet. So
no, that's right. Nothing about TC60. Maybe they're just saying, please release it.
Yeah. When TC for late submissions, there will never be TC for late submissions. In fact, we are going to disallow late submissions very soon. In the daily tournaments, there will be no late submissions.
Just wait for tomorrow.
Yes. Late submissions is a relic of the past when diagnostics was part of the submission endpoint. And we wanted people to be able to use diagnostics even outside the submission window. But now that diagnostics is its own tool, there's actually no reason for you to submit late. Well, no reason for us, at least, because it doesn't help us at all, except spending money computing your score. So I don't want to support that anymore.
And I also kind of, I like Kaggle, right? Kaggle was like a kind of inspiration. But the idea that Kaggle gets to do this thing where it's like they have these like tournaments that last 180 days and everybody's submitting on the same data and there's no deadline until that final deadline. And so you can kind of like use the website like a person. But I no longer believe it's possible for Numerai to be that way, where you're kind of like using the website manually as a person, and like for that to work, you really do need to automate your submissions, and we are going to have the best and easiest ways we can imagine to make the submissions automatable and daily.
Okay, Anonymous, any plans on making classic tournament profitable again for small stakers by removing the payout factor?
Stake TC.
Stake TC. Has TC been demystified?
Not really. It will be more so.
If a user requests a partial stake release, how do you decide whether to just unlock deposit or pay with fresh NMR from Treasury? Can you put this in the official docs?
I don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah, maybe this could be a question just on Rocket Chat that you could ask us. Okay, any plans on bridging the gap between the people with money and the people with brains, i.e. external staking on predictions?
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty cool what CrowdSend has done, getting all the money from Pantera and staking it. And I also am very interested in what's happening on Numerai. I mean, if CrowdSend have something like, $5 million from Pantera, I don't know why they wouldn't rapidly try to buy models on Numerai or communicate with other users who are beating them to get better. So I think that's a good example of like capital coming in from the money people and making its way to the community. But us directly allowing external staking on others doesn't serve us that much. Like the good thing about the CrowdSend thing is like there's Pantera giving it to them because they think they're good. And they have like reason to believe that. But if they were just like looking at the leaderboard, seeing who's done well lately and staking them, I don't know what that gives us really. That's not really how this works. So you gotta the reason you're staking yourself is so you can express your confidence in your model. And it's hard to get away from that.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. We've reached the bottom of Slido.
All right. Well,
let me quickly check Rocket Chat if there's any questions here.
Some from Wiggle Muse. Seems like.
Yeah, it's just more. It's the tight deadline stuff. I think we can take it. We can take it offline here. But yeah.
Well, yeah. Thanks everybody. And again, like we're at an amazing point in the company, and we very, very much appreciate all of your contributions. And me going to the meetup was awesome, and seeing the stuff people do be better than our own ideas very often. In fact, one of the things I mentioned was that we built this internal models project as a way to make infrastructure so that we could release benchmark models. But while building the internal models project, we tried to make models that could beat the meta model with all kinds of ways, upweighting Jerome-based models and then doing regressions to combine lots of models together, and then having different models and having tons of our own internal models combined together that were our best ideas do so badly compared to the meta model. It's crazy. And you should see how badly they do on supreme settings. Remember, the point of supreme is we're putting big bets on our favorite predictions. And the favorite predictions of the meta model are so much more valuable and better than the favorite predictions of a huge collection of internal models. So that's on Numerai, one huge piece of success. And then on signals, the same type of thing is true now. When we backtest those models, we look at adding those models into Numerai, it's looking amazing. So I have very, very little doubt that if we keep growing as we're currently growing, in a few years, there'll be $100 million staked on Numerai across signals and Numerai. There'll be, potentially as much as 100,000 different signals, and very little in our way to stop us.
Thank you for listening. See you in the next Fireside Chat.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.